So I was trying to think through how I could refine the steps to my painting process in a more simple way that is just kind of boiling it down to the essence of, like, here are the 7 or 8 steps for how I approach oil painting. I found that was really challenging though, and I wanted to talk about that with this painting I have on screen. So I start these pretty much all the same way. You can see on screen we've got the outline done kind of in a middle sort of hue and value, just kind of getting the rough shapes of everything that will be in this composition. And then once I've got that outline, which that kind of middle tone and value is like hue and value, is kind of thinned down with an oil, like linseed oil usually. I bought some safflower oil as well that I want to try, but something like that, just to thin it down. And then once I'm done with that, then I start kind of going in with some skin tones, usually trying to rough out like what are some color shapes that are within this subject. If it's more of a head and shoulders portrait, which this is obviously not, this is like a full kind of, it's like a cafe scene is what it's supposed to be. Usually it's hard to get the facial details. I've gotten better over time, but it's harder to see those really discrete big shapes. So you're kind of trying to get smaller little shapes in there. And then once I've got the kind of the facial details, then I start getting into more of the sort of the main subject of the painting's clothes, and getting, again, it's color shapes though. It's like putting the dark shapes in, putting the lighter shapes in, kind of bringing it up with white, titanium white, or getting some cooler colors with some blues and things like that, or going warmer with some yellows and reds, and just kind of experimenting and finding those spots. Usually once I'm done with the subject, when I say done, I don't mean done, just getting the basics on the subject. Then I start branching out and trying different things. And that's where it's probably a little hard to break down my process in a consistent way, because while yes, I usually do get the basics of the subject first, and I tend to kind of start with the face. Once I get past that, it just varies so much. And that's why I had such a hard time when I was considering this painting that's on screen, trying to figure out, like, how do I describe this process in a consistent way? I did do a step-by-step painting kind of walkthrough tutorial video, and I've done a lot of walkthroughs that are specific to individual paintings, but I tried to do a step-by-step, like a boilerplate type, even with the intent of making it that way before I even started the painting. And honestly, it was kind of a mixed result. There was still variation where I couldn't say really, hey, this is the way that I do it every time. I was thinking about that. Maybe that's part of the fun of painting. I've talked about the various aspects of painting that I really enjoy before, actually in quite a few videos, but maybe that's part of the fun of it, is like the ad-lib part, kind of the improvisation part. Like for this painting in particular, you can see that it's kind of freehand, and like a lot of the stuff in the background I don't really have a plan for necessarily. I knew that I wanted people in the background, but I didn't want to take the time to do discrete people, so I just kind of did the shapes of people. And the kind of cafe, like, I don't know what you call that, a promenade, or like just the aspects of the cafe or the restaurant that is. I don't really have a great plan for what that should look like either. Just trying to define how does that look, how do you approach it is tough. I'm very inspired by a lot of kind of quasi-impressionist painters, and I love the look of that, like trying to suggest light and suggest form through shape. Obviously, as you can see on screen, I am not a precision painter. I'm not a realist. Like, I don't know that I have the talent to even do that, but like, that's just not really the way that I approach things. So, here I knew that would be the case. So it was just kind of filling in the suggestions of different things, filling in the darker shapes where they should be, And that goes for people and just shadow aspects behind the subject, like in the trees, darker shades of blue and green, and just trying to make that make the most sense in the piece. So circling back to process, there are just massive variations in my process. And part of that just goes to how I'm feeling as I'm doing this. Usually the setup or the scenario that I have for when I'm painting is I'm just hanging out. Usually my family is around, the kids are playing, we're just kind of hanging out. Maybe we're listening to music. It's kind of a casual, relaxed scenario. So in that case, I might be talking to them too while I'm painting, and there's just not a whole lot of structure to what is happening. And I think that's probably honestly why I have so varied results sometimes in my paintings. Sometimes like they look decent and they turn out okay. Sometimes they look really, really unfinished. There's a lot of variation just because the process varies so much, I think. I will say, though, that the beginning is consistent and the end is too. You can see now I'm touching up, I'm adding light and just kind of hitting where things should be emphasized with very bright white or unique colors like yellows, bright yellows. And that's how I usually wrap these up, as I did on screen here. That's all I have for this one. Hope that I can talk more about process in future videos. Thanks for watching.